Hello. All right. Good evening, all. Ken has said everything I needed to say. So I will start with just the chicken and egg concept. And probably that will summarize my talk this evening. I will not be tied to my slides because I did a lot of calculus. And I know that I don't do calculus in the evening. It's better in the morning. Just to be sure that we are all together this evening, let me come up with a nice story that will summarize my slides. If you listen to Bobby, his jokes tells you exactly where he's going to, or you listen to Agodai, or you even listen to this other guy, Alibaba. But have you tried listening to the joke of Mr. Paul? I'm sure you wonder what he's talking about, but you paid to listen to him. And that is what happens when we deal with hydrocarbon losses. The chicken and egg concept is one simple concept I cooked up recently. The chicken had laid 10 eggs and went to the church to share testimony that he has 10 eggs that will give 10 chickens. The farmer agreed with the chicken that you're going to have 10 chicks. But the wife was not factored in that conversation. So unfortunately for the chicken, the farmer's wife also took in and started having craving for chicken egg, a particular kind of chicken egg that matches the farmer's chicken. So the farmer was forced to pick out one egg and did what he did for the wife to satisfy the craving. The chicken also went on assuming that, all our eggs were correct because one chicken out of 10 is probably nothing. And at the end of the day, she had just 9 chicks instead of 10. I'm sure you understand the joke. That is exactly what happens to many of the operators. Because you are losing tiny piece of your crude, it's nothing. Right? You go ahead, at the end of the day, appraisals are done. You get the credit for delivering on your job. The MD pats you on the back. But not until a data analyst puts together those losses over a period of time, then you begin to appreciate the impact of what you are losing per day. I'll give a vivid example. Just last night, I was just thinking, a bank with GT Bank, probably one of the best banks. I'm not selling them anyway. But I discovered that they have about 32.4 million customers. And I checked my alert and discovered that each time I make transfer, they charge me about 103 naira. Right? 25 naira for NIP transfer charges, 6.85 naira for VAT, and Telcom takes about 8.3 naira. If you aggregate that, that's over 100 naira per transfer. And I asked myself, if GT has about 32.4 million customers, you aggregate that in just one transaction, that gives about 1.8 billion naira just for transfer. And that is how serious losses are. Now, to bring it home, if you look at the concept of calculus, I didn't understand calculus while I was doing petroleum engineering, both in my first degree and second degree. Only when I did my MBA, then I understood that calculus is the science of aggregating small changes over time that accumulates to big things. And then I started taking seriously those small things I do, that I take for granted. And that's exactly why I want to speak to us about mainstreaming hydrocarbon losses as a critical KPI for operational excellence. Now, because I know that she will soon call me to stop, I just want to talk about 3 areas and then I'll drop the mic. I'm not going to use my slides. Maybe later we can share the slides. If you want operational excellence, then we need to look at 3 main areas: people, technology, and process. People, technology, and process. And now, for technology, every technology has somebody behind it. Am I correct? Every process has somebody behind it. And I want to leave technology and process for Ken. Let me talk about people. Who do you deploy to manage your hydrocarbon system, your hydrocarbon accounting, your metering system? Who do you deploy? Before now, all the operators, as you begin to make inroad into developing your field, you want to assess probably the best funding mechanism, and also you want to bring in your best brain to look at the engineering behind your wells and all that, right? The geologist gives you the prognosis, and then you understand where you want to place your well, and that's where you start from. But nobody talks about the end point. How do you meter? How do you measure? How do you convert that product to cash? Nobody thinks about that. In fact, it's always an afterthought. In fact, we are always afterthought. Right? And then when you are done with all that, even evacuation doesn't come into place. You think about the evacuation when you've laid your pipeline, you've drilled, and then so how do I get it to the terminal? You just go to a jeep of avocados, right? And then whatever they give to you, collect. The most important thing is about you want quick cash. But that is an error. In this age, if you cannot evacuate, don't drill. If you cannot evacuate, don't invest. If you cannot evacuate, don't even look for the money, because it is all a waste of time. We've seen it happen. My friend talked about alternative evacuation, right? A lot of us have tried it, and we'll see to even do the alternative evacuation, you need to be losing at least 80% of your production for it to be profitable in the first instance, right? Now, let's go back to people. Who do you deploy to man your metering stations? And I want to appeal to every one of us, to the MDs, to the directors, to the board of directors. You need your best brain to manage this metering system. These are the hydrocarbon systems. I'll give you an instance. I managed a metering station for about 13 years. In one of my analyses, especially when I was doing my my mini MBA in Techidia, I looked at our in-house process, and I discovered that we're doing DRA injection just to ease out our injection down to RG facility. And then we had a full-fledged team managing the DRA unit. And I asked myself, do we truly need to be paying these guys to be managing this system when we can confidently outsource it? So I did the numbers and shared with my MD. I said, see, it's better to outsource this unit so that we can deploy these resources to other critical areas. At the end of the day, my MD said, wow, this idea is brilliant. He submitted it to the board, it was approved, and then we outsourced the DRA unit, which was cheaper for us. By the time we stopped doing the DRA unit, we didn't need to scratch our head over what to do with the team, because we just packed up the unit and that was it. I could only do that because I understood the entire value chain of measurement. I knew the implication. I could see I have the overview of the implication on our bottom line. So who do you deploy to manage this system? And I want to talk to the operators as well. The reason why a lot of people who have worked for the IOCs don't want to work for the indigenous companies is because of the way we pay them. I can tell you, a lot of the guys that came for this meeting, they cannot afford to stay in Federal Palace Hotel. Probably the extra code given to them, they cannot even afford that in the first instance. So you see that it is about people, right? If you don't invest on people coming to learn in this kind of conference, how would they deliver in their jobs? How would they measure accurately? How would they go back and take home these learnings and deploy in their various system? The people. The next sort of people I want to talk about is the regulators. Now, over time, we've always talked about regulatory capture. When your regulators are captured, they won't also deliver effectively. They will just come around and say, okay, I see what you are doing. They will sign off your calibration report, and that is it. But meanwhile, a lot of things goes on. You are using meters that are not well calibrated. You are not compliant in the first instance because the regulators are not doing their job. So first and foremost, we need to ask ourselves, are the regulators empowered to do their job? Sometimes these guys come to the field, and when they say, oh, you are not doing the right thing, you pick up the phone and call their boss because you've done the necessary PRO, and the boss calls your boss and says, what is that person doing there? And that is the end of the story. So I'm discussing this because these are the real issues affecting hydrocarbon measurement that we are not talking about. It was just recently, I hear that NPROs stopped their staff from even collecting gifts from operators. Remember those days, I remember in my early life, when DPRO staffs are coming, you are buying plantain, you are buying gari, you are buying everything to ensure that they go back home happy. Because if they don't sign, yes, it happens. Those days. Yes, those days. But now it has stopped. Yes, it has stopped. So the regulators must be efficient, such a way that they are allowed to do their job. Because if they don't do their job, it's going to affect every one of us, even beyond the oil and gas space. For every molecule of oil that you lose as a nation is affecting your children without you knowing it. Okay, so Nigeria, our shortfall in one of my papers I wrote is about 400,000 barrels. Do you know the implication of that? Probably bigger than most states' budgets. And that is what we are losing because we are not doing the right thing. The second one I want to talk about is our legal system. If you have any issues arising from hydrocarbon accounting, do you have the legal structure to deal with it? Do you have the legal structure? Sometimes, and I want to say this, the bigger boys have also done us harm in some areas because they are the owners, the operators of these terminals. By the time you finish injecting to their lines, they are looking to you whatever they think is correct for you, with undermining the CHA that you have signed. So even the CHA now is not even something you can hold on to. Because if you have given somebody, if you have done custody transfer, then the person should take responsibility for what happens to your crude. If you are not sure, then stop the transaction. And then you go back to regulators. Even the regulators sometimes are stranded. They don't know what to do about it. Because if you move the needles, you go and settle it in Abuja. In conclusion, there are two types of losses. I call it the domestic loss and the Abuja loss. All that I've said is about the domestic loss. The Abuja loss is beyond our control. Sometimes we shy away from talking about it, but those losses are critical to our national survival. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So I enjoyed this session as well because we focused on people, which is very, very important.